Oh. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Town of Pownell Select Board Meeting, April 23rd, 2026 at 6 P.M. Can I call the meeting in order? Board member roll call.
Roy Weber. Katie Alexander.
Mike Gardner.
Carl Strohmeyer. Jamie Person.
Can we all rise for the pledge of allegiance, please?
Pledge of allegiance.
Wait a minute.
To the,
Wait a minute.
sorry.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, Mike.
Carl, I don't think you heard Juliet.
No, I didn't. I got no hearing in this area.
Thank you.
All right, Julie.
Thank you.
Grab a seat.
Thank you for asking, Julie. All right.
No, that's okay.
Approval of the agenda. Anybody have any changes to the agenda? Additions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Public comment. Full minutes, April 8th, 2026, special select board meeting.
Don't move. Second.
Any discussion? Corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
April 9th, 2026 minutes, special select board meeting.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Correction? All those in favor?
Aye.
April 9th, 2026 regular select board meeting.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Corrections? Additions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Warrants, accounts payable, April 17th, $40,756.81.
So move.
Second.
Any questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Accounts payable, April 24th, $72,227.40.
So move.
Any discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Payroll, April 17th, $12,022.91.
So move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Payroll, April 24th, $12,529.92.
So move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, brings us to agenda item 8. U.S. Forest Service update with Martina Barnes, National Forest District Ranger. So the only thing I'm gonna ask is sometimes our viewers say they have trouble hearing, so if you would just come to the table when you speak, introduce yourself, and we'll go from there. Thank you for coming.
Of course. Hi, everyone. It's, I think, I know Michael. If
Well, let's introduce ourselves because I definitely have never.
But yeah, no, it's, I'll start, so yeah, Martina Barnes. Oh, would you
Nope.
like to, yeah.
You're, thanks first.
Yeah.
No.
Martina Barnes, yes, I'm the district ranger, which means basically I am responsible for the Manchester Ranger District, which includes Pownell and the towns approximately south of Route 4, like near Killington, Pico area, down to the Massachusetts border. So part of the southern half of the Green Mountain National Forest.
Nice.
And we'll have a few other folks. Well, I'll just give my brief update and we have a few other folks who are here and they can introduce themselves at that time too. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. We try to reach out to not all 29 towns because it's a lot of meetings to go to, but we try to hit at least the towns where we have active projects going on. And so we have several active projects, either planned or ongoing in Pownell. So it's just a chance for you to meet us and know that we're here as a resource for you. And yeah, we do have some exciting projects going on in recreation and well, few not directly in Pownell, but we have some timber projects and a land acquisition project that's planned as well. And so we wanted just to give you a chance to ask us questions as well. But I'm going to leave you with a few pieces of paper. One is if you want to know what's happening across the national forest in general, we post all of our active projects on our website, and it's updated quarterly, and it's called the Quarterly Proposed Projects List. And so this is a link, this is just a printout, but you can go there. We also, on an annual basis, issue a letter to all the towns in Vermont that have national forest in them. And this is just you probably received this in January, but if you didn't, here's another copy of it. So it's a few months outdated, but it talks about one of the recreation projects that we have approved. It doesn't directly impact Pownell, but maybe it's a mountain bike trail called the Velemont. And so we'll have Steve, who's here with me, he's maybe going to just touch on it briefly. And so I've also included the maps. Apologies, our printer is not feeling so well, so it likes to print pink on the top, but this just gives you a little more information about that. And then I also just wanted to mention we do have a project called the Roaring Branch Project, which is in both Pownell and Stamford. And you may have heard of it, but it's a land acquisition project that involves about 2,000 acres. And we'll leave this map with you as well, so you can kind of see where it is. Yeah, it's sort of right up the Roaring Brook. What is Roaring Branch, Roaring Brook? Shoot. I should know this, but it's up here. And it involves, is this yeah, I guess. I don't know. I have another map of it here. So yeah. Yeah. It's the Roaring Branch. I don't know. It might be a typo.
Does it go behind like South Stream and like,
I can't answer your question because I don't know the area that closely, but it is currently managed by the Trust for Public Land, but the long-term plan is for it to become part of the Green Mountain National Forest. And it's about 2,135 acres.
Do you have a small map of that?
Yeah, sure. And so land acquisitions take years. It's different than when you buy a house on your, a private individual. So it's a slow multi-year process that involves lots of people and lots of reviews. And right now it's in the survey stage. So we're finalizing, or the Trust for Public Land is working through finalizing the survey. So the estimate is that it will become part of the national forest in about 1 to 2 years. So it's still a long way off. But at that time, when it does become generally the lands that we acquire, we'll definitely let you know. There's usually like a press release and announcement.
I believe you emailed me to the town clerk, because a lot of my stuff I'll print and I put it on our board.
Oh, good.
I believe your name sounds familiar with my emails.
Okay, yep, yeah, would have been
I'm town clerk also.
Oh, okay.
I think I know.
So yeah, but these are all I just gave you a whole pile of papers. A lot of them are land acquisitions in other towns. Happy to leave it with you. But I wanted to, just because I know you have a full agenda. Is anyone here with the Conservation Commission or?
I was expecting someone with the
Okay.
Conservation Commission, but I don't know,
Yeah.
on mine maybe? No, Yep.
Janie is, yeah.
Janie is. Yep.
Great. Okay, I wanted to make sure we get, if there's any, okay, great. Any questions or feedback, but I was gonna pass it along to maybe Steve to just talk about the recreation projects that we have going in and around the area, and then to Steve and Melly Stacy and Melly to talk about some of the timber activity that we have going on. So
Thanks for having us. Steve Bitlick, the Recreation Program Manager here on the Manchester District. So our biggest priority is to provide public access to the National Forest lands. Our other recreation priorities include like multi-use trails. We have snowmobile trails, mountain bike trails, you name it. The Appalachian Trail is one of the bigger assets coming through here. And then developed recreation, we have some campgrounds, none specifically in Pownell, but we do consider like our trailheads, like the Dome Trailhead or the Appalachian Trailhead, a rec site that we manage. We'll have a kiosk. And then our dispersed recreation, which is like the wilderness campsites along roads that don't have fees, that type of thing. But we haven't done a lot of work. I'd say the biggest thing we've done lately in Pownell is on the Appalachian Trail. Our partners that help us manage the Appalachian Trail are the Green Mountain Club. So from the state line, there was a little section of the Appalachian Trail that was on private. We relocated it onto the National Forest just for that like permanent conservation protection. But from that line up to County Road in Stanford, the crew was there all last summer working on the tread. So they'll be out there again this summer, and we have an opportunity. The Appalachian Trail is considered a long linear national park, so it's technically national park, but because we're the managing and the landowner, we do all like the boots on the ground work. But long story short, they're providing some capital. They're calling it the Legacy Restoration Fund. It's through the Great America Outdoor Act, and there's $5 million available for the Appalachian Trail for the New England states. So we want a piece of the pie, and we're hoping to do some tread improvements. I don't know if you've hiked the sections, but it gets kind of muddy in the spring, and we're hoping to improve it. A couple of years ago, just over the line in Stanford, we relocated a shelter a little further up because there were some user conflicts with motorized use and things like that. So having resources to rebuild shelters, put up composting privies in the backcountry has been our focus in this area. We also have the Velomont is a long distance mountain bike trail. It's been developed a little bit more up on the north end, but it's going to be very similar to the Long Trail, which is Massachusetts to Canada. It'll be a long distance mountain bike trail with a potential for camping along the way if folks want to do like hut to hut biking instead of just sections. But it's going to be connecting existing bike networks all along the system. Mount Snow is an area that would like to be in on it. They'll probably tie it in with some of their summer activities like Stratton. But eventually it will end by the reservoirs up on Route 9. And then we'll see what Massachusetts does with it. We have noticed interest in mountain biking in the area down at our Dome Trailhead off of White Oak Road. During COVID, there was some trails that popped up. So it shows like the user need. So we're trying to keep up with basically our partners and what we're seeing on the ground for use. And just over the line in Stanford, we're working with VASA on some ATV trails, and I think they feed into the town on County Road. So we're hoping to get improvements out Sucker Pond and out Corridor 9, which is like the stagecoach that goes over to Reedboro. So mostly trail focused projects, just because we don't have like a developed campground here in town. But yeah, that's, unless you have questions, that's our rec update.
Anybody have any questions? I have a question on the Bassett stuff, obviously, that's
Yeah.
a huge topic, for lack of a better term, for
Yeah.
a while, right?
Yeah.
I know there was, last year there was, coordinated effort for some, enforcement. The sheriff's department and some other law enforcement agencies, Jerry State Dean and stuff with National Forest. Where exactly, well, just exactly is kind of not a very good term, right?
Yeah.
Where is the National Forest at with extending from the Stagecoach, Reedsboro area? I know there really well, right? I've lived there my whole life, so that mountain I know. That one over there, not so much. This one here, I know, exactly where you guys are talking about. I've had boots on the ground up there a lot, so where exactly are you at with extending? Again, not a good term.
So the Sucker Pond Trail connected down to County Road for a number of years, and then there's the Risky Ranch Trail. So Risky Ranch, Klondike, and County Road make like a triangle of like where that town allows OHVs. So there was basically a wetland that we need to relocate the trail around on Sucker Pond. So Martina made a decision to remove the ATV summer use a few years ago. So it's been open for snowmobiles. We just got a Polaris grant, and Vass is actually going to come meet with us on Monday. But if we can get the trail relocated out of the wetland, get the trail back up to standard. Stacy has a timber sale in the next couple of years out there. I think after that sale and the closeout, we'll be able to get the trail open back up. But it would basically be Burgess Road in Bennington feeds up to, some people call it Lake Hancock, Sucker Pond. And then it's about 7 miles down to County Road. And then if,
Overthrow.
yeah, so basically it's getting Sucker Pond reopened for summer use is our ultimate goal, but it's not going to happen just yet.
So what?
Although there's users out there.
Yes, lots of, right?
Yeah.
So
And that's where the enforcement comes in.
So that leads me into my next question. Because your organizations that you deal with, VASA and the Great Mountain Club for the Long Trail and different things, right? What could our OHV users, and I already kind of know the answer to this, okay, but I want people out there to hear the answer, okay? What could they do to help you? And I know it's not gonna happen this summer, you just said that, right? We knew that.
Right.
What could they help you do to facilitate having an open road, trail, not a road, a trail that connects from County Road to Sucker Pond, where a registered vehicle that has insurance and whatever else they're supposed to have, and the helmets on the occupants and so on and so forth. What could they do to help facilitate this for the national?
Great question.
Well, I know the answer, kind of. I just wanna, I want people to hear. So one of the things that one of the misconceptions is the National Forest doesn't want anybody out there at all. That's a misconception.
Definitely.
We know-
Completely, yeah.
We know, in my opinion is, I paid for that, I wanna be able to use it, but I also wanna be able to use it legally. And I also own land up there. But I wanna be able to use the whole network legally and not have to worry about whether I run into one of you or a game warden, as long as I'm acting responsible. Right, and right now that's not happening, because they're all illegal. I get that. And so that's the reason for my question, Martina
Yeah.
and Stephen, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I'd say working with the local club, like volunteering for them is like the biggest piece. Like we don't have the resources to do all the necessary trail work that's out there, but say like the Stanford Ridge Riders or like the Jack Pine Pirates over in Reedsboro, we use their hours as match towards like that Polaris grant. So basically working with the clubs, helping to maintain the trails is the biggest thing. And then they do a lot of like the signage and Vast as well. Like in the winter, if folks are going off trail with the snowmobiles, once lakes are frozen and wetlands are frozen over, and then, they're trespassing or not staying on the trail, they help us basically keep folks on the designated trail systems. And that's the biggest piece. After this timber sale up on the Sucker Pond area, there'll be skid roads all over the place. So trying to, keep them back on the main trail afterwards is going to be a bit of a challenge. So that's where,
We could use your help as.
And that's, when I heard timber sale, I'm all for that, okay, because I've walked all these areas, Mount Tabor and whatever, right, so I'm all for that. So basically what you're, if I'm gonna downgrade this a little bit, right? If we had a local club, which we do have a local club, if that local club were to come to the national forest and say, look, we're willing to help do whatever we can
Mhm.
to facilitate this and make it quicker. And then we're gonna work with our timber sale in 2 years or whatever that is to make sure we stay off these other skid roads and we stay on the main trail that we're trying to open and maintain and continue to have
Yep.
for people to ride. Right, and this is
Yep.
what we're saying.
Yeah.
Yep, we're trying to get rid of all these, it's like as you know, a spider web of illegal trails everywhere. It's just destroying the whole forest. We want people to stay on a designated route.
And that's what I'm hearing, that's what I'm hearing the National Forest wants to do, you don't, the National Forest doesn't necessarily have. The hate sign, you're not on the four corners of Bennington, we hate four wheelers, side by side, right? You guys are,
Stay on the trail.
that's right, you're trying to push that, and I appreciate that. Another question that I have is, because that trail now is open for snowmobiles.
Yeah.
Right? What is the? You probably maybe haven't even thought of this, so I don't know. What is the opportunity for that to remain open through the winter months for the OHV use? Because I know some of the vast trails now can't be used by both.
Yeah, and I've heard of some of those clubs, the tracked UTVs over in Reedsboro and the Jack Pine Pirates. Basically, VASA and VAST need to kind of get on the same page with what they allow in different seasons, because like basically our trail partner changes over as the season changes over. So if VAST is like, we don't want tracked vehicles, or, we basically need the Vermont Association of Snow Travelers to, write it in as an okay vehicle to be on their network, because their network is here in many cases before the forest and extends well beyond the forest. So we're kind of provide partial like opportunities for VAST, but they're kind of the leader with snowmobiles in Vermont.
Right. No, I mean, again, it's. I grew up with snowmobiles, so I don't have one now, I grew up there, so I know all about it.
So I feel it's like kind of up to their organization and their membership on what they allow. It's like VASA doesn't allow dirt bikes, but they allow, four wheelers and side by side. So it's kind of the way their bylaws and their trail access decal, like what does that give you rights to do? And they're the ones that have been kind of setting, those standards for their clubs.
And if they would just work together, they would have twice the amount of people that are trying to make this happen, right?
Yeah.
It's the same conversation about the guy that shoots a crossbow and the person who shoots a crossbow and the person who shoots a recurve and a compound, right? It's all archery, but whatever.
Yeah, I'll just give one quick example, like on Risky Branch, that little section, you come across the Pownell line and there's a, you probably know that puddle there, some folks call it the sippy hole,
Yeah.
but it's definitely a party spot. And we got the clubs, to basically clean it all up. It took like 2 8-yard dump trucks to get all that burned furniture out of there and tires and whatnot. And after they helped us clean it up and block off some of the wetlands and the areas, it's reopened as part of that triangle that the town of Stamford has. So that's basically an example, like they helped us do a project, steward it, and now it's reopened. So that's kind of the model that we're looking for. We want to have it at a minimum standard to provide a safe riding opportunity. Even some of our side by side, we don't have like side by side, we have like a Polaris. We can barely get through Sucker Pond right now to get trail maintenance out there. So we have to have the trail at a standard that we could at least get out there and cut down trees, or like if there's a search and rescue, we have to be able to access it. So that's like our low bar.
Who would the contact person be for the National Forest if, say, our club president?
Probably Steve, he's our recreation
Yeah.
program manager, so.
Could we add his name to our website as a contact person? Would that be all right with you, to the town of Pownell website for a contact person?
You're okay with that? Yeah, sure.
Well, I just want
Are
to.
you okay with that?
Yeah, so
That's big question.
well, yeah, so technically, I am like the liaison between the National Forest and VASA, so I'm the appropriate person to be on it. It does, you've seen the sides, and sometimes even lawyers get involved when towns are making decisions. we just try to stay out of any of the decisions with opening roads that are in our jurisdiction and just kind of stay focused on.
I've seen that, Tori, and what I'm looking for is if our local club here in town, which I believe there is one, wanted to have a contact person to say, what can, if I were that person, what can I do?
Yeah.
Sure.
That's all I'm looking for. I'm not looking for you know, to say, oh yeah, you need to open this road, that road, or another road. That's totally on us. I understand.
Yeah. So Ethan Hill is like the trail manager or trail master from VASA. Him and I basically work very closely on all of these grants that we've received, or whenever we partner with a club, he's kind of like the lead and then works with the local club.
How long has he been doing that? A while?
6, 7 years?
He was down here.
Yeah.
He was,
Yeah.
that name sounds familiar. When we had that whole big conversation like.
Yeah, so
6 years ago, and he was here.
the two of us are kind of
But I remember talking.
yeah, so we're like the points, trying to work with any club.
Casey and Melly, I don't know if you
Thanks
guys.
for your time.
Here's, thank you, and pass this over, this is the other material.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Amelia Napper. Everyone calls me Melly. I'm the Vermont Public Lands Forester for the Rough Grouse Society. I've been working in partnership with the Forest Service, the Green Mountain National Forest, for 2 years now, and I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about this Rocky Hollow timber sale that we'll be administering here on the Green Mountain National Forest. It's a part of the South of Route 9 Integrated Resource Project with which Stacy could talk to you more about. But we're really pleased to be working with the Forest Service on this project, whose goals focus on creating habitat for wildlife, promoting oak habitat, and just creating healthier forests, which is a shared goal that we have. So I'll be the person essentially the point person for that Rocky Hollow timber sale. So it's approximately, I think it's a little bit less, 170 acres. Do you have it, Stacy? And it's a mix of different treatments, as I said, focusing on 64.
164.
164. So focusing on creating habitat or creating conditions to allow for oak to regenerate. So you may or may not already know that the Forest Service has been doing a lot of work down there, using fire, planting, essentially to get more oak, because unfortunately we have conditions right now where oak is not able to regenerate in the understory. So they've been very successful in a lot of that work. So we're excited to move this project forward and to bring some of these projects to fruition. So if you ever have any questions, I'm here to add capacity for the Forest Service, and I really value being able to communicate with the public and be able to be a resource for folks in the area. If there's ever questions, obviously, please reach out to me. I'd love to be able to host some sort of tour for neighbors, folks in the community who are interested, want to know what that paint on the tree means and whatnot. So I was involved obviously heavily with the actual boots on the ground work, and I'll be seeing the project through. So I'd love to be able to be a resource for folks. I think that's about it, but Stacy, I'll hand it over to Stacy.
Hi, I'm Stacy Stratton. I'm the timber manager on the Manchester Ranger District.
Yeah.
Been here for 10 years, so that's the last time I walked down there. The first time I walked was 10 years ago down there. So it's nice to be finally getting into that Rocky Hollow area. And like Melly was saying, it is going to be a stewardship, and so there will be, the wood will pay for some work.
Yeah, I forgot.
Most of it's erosion control. As you know, if you walk that dome trail, the rocks just keep, the trails wash out. So, so what I have here,
Oh, and additionally, the enhanced recreation opportunities. So improving that
parking area.
parking area down there. So hopefully that'll be something that we're able to accomplish. We just got the final numbers for the amount of essentially value that we're working with, and that kind of determines the amount of work we can get done. So
That parking area is off the White Oaks.
Yes.
Yes.
You're talking, okay. I just want people to understand that.
off of White Oaks.
So I brought our 5-year plan. I have 4 copies of it, and if you need an electronic version, just let me know. I also have a couple of my business cards, and I don't mind being a contact for anybody here in town either. So if you want a couple of them there. So our big map here. So they look kind of a lot of green out there, but so the Rocky Hollow's down here in the bottom corner, and you can see like it's highlighted all in green. So it looks like a large area, but it really, if you look there, we're really only harvesting some discrete areas. That's 164 acres out of that. Right. So I just don't want anyone to like see like this one here for 2027. We're not like cutting everything in there or managing everything in there. You know, usually it's like 40% of the acres is where usually what we end up with.
And varied types of treatment. So a mix of, thinnings, improvements, regeneration treatments, which would include shelter woods, which means leaving trees on the landscape that'll serve as seed source and create conditions to regenerate some of those target species.
The other sale that is ongoing, that started last year, was a Broadbrook timber sale. It's being accessed off the Risky Ranch Road. There's an old, I don't know what, I'm sure that road was built in across the AT to get in there, a long time ago. And you can see a lot of it is like small little circles. Those are probably like 2-acre groups, again, we're just trying to get some multiple ages going out there. So that's probably got another couple of years left on it. Then if you look a little bit to the west of it there, left of me says future timber sale area, estimated 2027 to start. That's called the Dome Timber Sale. That'll be on the list. We come up with the names because something that's close.
Yep.
So again, we have just started in there to assess the ground. And like I said, we're looking for heritage, streams, wetlands, wildlife. Sometimes we've been in sales in the winter and there's a goshawk. So we can't. We have rules about all that. So a lot of times, if we start in this area, and you've been here your whole life, and if there's anything in there you think like we should know about special, it'd be nice to know, because we're just in the planning stages for a lot of these sales.
Yeah.
It's very easy to like make some mitigations or to exclude some areas now.
I'm sure that there's there's a bear den area on a certain part of the dome, but I'm very confident that the Forest Service knows exactly where that is. Yeah. Hey, I don't need to walk up there.
Oh, and the other sale there, it's for, is that 2028? That's the one, so we're calling it the Meadow, and it's a timber sale, and it's another stewardship, like we talked about, going in there. And so what a lot of that, timber harvesting, the value of the wood's going to be paying for is erosion control. Like I said, it's like, you were all there probably 10 years ago when that beaver dam was across. And just, what that looked like, and everybody had to keep getting further away. And that's the only time I've ever gotten off a UTV and say, I'm going to walk from here, because it was just so nasty, but gotten a lot better, of course, now that the dam's gone. But so a lot of that in there is for erosion control. And again, to close off our skid trails when we're done, there's no intent, hopefully they're just temporary water barring, hopefully, do something to block them off a little bit. And then, yes, to work on a road or a trail in there to make sure that what we want in there is there. So that's the great thing about stewardship. So we have a lot of freedom. The wood pays for, the value of the wood pays for that work. And so we have a lot in there. That's why it's such a big area, because, there's a lot of work. So sometimes you need a lot of timber to pay for that.
So connected to this, I have a couple of questions about forest management and about concerns from residents. And also, I do think it's worth noting that we have 2 members of Conservation Commission and our district manager for a conservation district here as well. And I think it could also be beneficial for us and for residents if any of them have questions also to. If you guys have any questions. But the question I have about forest management is that, you guys know this. I remember in 2023, air quality was really bad from Canadian forest fires. It was not great last year. And I hear increasing concerns. Like, it seems like I follow you guys on Instagram, like the Forest Service. So great job, first of all. Thank you for what you do. I appreciate it. But we seem to have additional days of high fire risk. And just over like the past 3 years. So my question is sort of like, what I'm sure everyone's asking me this question. It's like, what does your plan look like for forest management in anticipation of? Because I really feel like we're going to be in a really bad position if we continue to presume that it's not going to happen here. So. Everyone's definitely different.
I think this area in particular is a great example of that, where we have habitats that are more fire prone, they're more fire, it's something that's been on the landscape for a long time. So ensuring that we have species like oak that are, adapted to these types of fire regimes is important, so that we can ensure that we still have, habitats that are appropriate for the landscape. And obviously Stacy can talk more about what the fire folks do on the forest to kind of address those concerns.
So I was there, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I was sitting at the Dome Trailhead as a forest protection officer when they lit that fire for the first time in a lot of years. And there was some miscommunications, like we try to always communicate with the local forest fire wardens, but some of the numbers were mixed up. And I just remember the amount of people coming by because they looked up on that hill and saw smoke. And a lot of local residents, had come to me and said, hey, something went through here not that long ago and really good stuff. So what they're trying to do there is, first of all, like with the fire, is to like put fire back on the landscape to reduce those fuels.
Good.
It's if you go from what I remember 10 years ago walking in there, and what you see now is like a lot of that heavy brush, that slash, that blow down is gone.
Mhm.
A lot of the fine fuels that were in there are gone. Those have been consumed by fire. So when we went back through a few years after that to do another fire, it was a lot harder to get going, because we had consumed a lot of that, already. And across this forest, there's been a lot of research, and what we're finding, and of course it'll change depending on the areas, that about 20% of this forest, trees, there's mortality every year because there's only just so many trees can live in one spot. You start with this and you work at the other end. And so what we're doing with this harvesting is we're trying to improve the health of some of these stands. They're all the same age. They were all started by the same exact incident, logging or something else, trying to get some variation across the landscape, and of course, by recovering that mortality, you're reducing the fuels for fires. I mean, like I grew up, we always thought this is an asbestos forest. I grew up in Maine, like nothing burned unless there was a slash from a logging operation that was not cared for properly. We had a lot of that last year. We were doing work at the Dutch Hill ski area, and a lot of the residents were concerned because we had harvested in there, but around people's residents, if we're near any of them or their property lines, we pull back the wood 25 to 50 feet usually, so that if there is a fire, if there ever is, there's no fuel to consume to get to someone's property. When, again, that's our best attempt. And then of course we make sure the slash is to the ground, because it'll rot quicker that way. So we think of that in all of this, especially in this Rocky Hollow sale. It's like that is an area. And if you don't know, like, so the Dome Trail's here and like the Rocky Hollow sale is here, the other side of the trail, we're not doing anything to. And the reason why is the state has asked that to be like, kind of like, the placebo, like let's not do anything over here and just like do regular management. Over here, let's intensely manage. And you'll be able to see the difference, hopefully. Well, you will. I mean, you can see it now.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of thought to that, and we put a lot of thought into our operations, even for fire safety with the logging.
Yeah.
There is a lot of contractual items in there, and we can stop if it's a really dry day. If we say, hey, listen, we don't want you to spark up a fire with a chain on a rock from your skidder or your dozer. I worked in Minnesota. I was like, oh, wow, I'd never heard of that before until I got there. But it was dry.
A question, when you are going to do a section, do you blaze your property lines, or how do you do that?
We do so by law, by federal law. Any time that we are managing within 660 feet, I think, or quarter mile, whatever it turned out to be closer, we are required to run the property lines. The only one that we ran, like Melly and I went down last week and we ran the lines for along the old military road. Well, unfortunately, the line is the center line of the old military road. So how do you blaze that?
Yeah.
And so we just made sure that we erred on the side of, let's just stay over here.
Yeah.
You know, but the line is probably over here. But we do go out and
Okay.
we contract it out, or we have our own, you know, we don't have a surveyor anymore. You know, he's retired. But we do contract out a lot, and we try to go in several years before.
Okay.
And you know, they do a lot of research, and hopefully they're contacting the local resident, not the local, all of them, but the local landowners.
Yep.
If they're against it, they're doing that work. And so Melly and I, what we do for work is we go in there and we look at all the mitigations that our environmental analysis has said we should probably do, like, you know, how far away from a wetland, how far away from, like, you know, maybe there's a nesting site, like, you know, along Route 7, you have that, you know, the herons, you know, there. How far should we stay away from that? You know, even though we're in the winter harvesting it, but it still affects when they come back and there's something missing.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. So when we go into an area, you know, we may start with 1,200 acres. And by the time we are done, you know, we're right down to just a couple hundred acres of area. And of course, just because we propose it doesn't mean it's unhealthy over there. If it's really nice and it's growing, why manage it? Just manage over here where there is a problem, you know, the health of the forest. So there's a lot that goes in for years before we even get to here.
We do have questions.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Michael Fernandez, District Manager at the Bennington County Conservation District. Basically, and nice to meet the both of you. I first of all want to applaud the Ruffalo Grouse Society. This is a really cool project that you guys are bringing into the area. But I'm curious how, given how many projects that I've seen on hardwood, especially oak regeneration, mostly turn into buckthorn and honeysuckle. How are you preventing browse? Are you using temporary access control? Are you planting larger stems and intentionally planting species? Are you tree tubing? Or what's the approach that you're using that you are finding success with?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Kind of a two questions there. To protect the seedlings, so they already did an underplanting of oak, and they protected them with little tree tubes to essentially prevent browse. So that's what they did there. And then in the forest plan and in each of the integrated resource projects, there are mitigations that ensure that anytime equipment is brought onto the forest, before it enters the woods, anything that's going into the woods has to be thoroughly clean. Folks inspect them, make sure they're not bringing any dirt. And the idea there is we don't want to bring any seeds onto the landscape. And typically there's treatment of invasive species before the timber sale occurs. And then the botanists are going out, and obviously the timber staff themselves are well-versed in these different invasive species and monitoring afterwards to make sure if there are any issues that pop up, we're addressing those, because we don't want to put a treatment right where there's a bunch of invasives, because those are just going to thrive. So that we take those into consideration, definitely.
And what's that treatment method that you're using for the invasives?
So it depends. Sometimes it's hand pulling. We'll have, crews of BYCC come out and help with that. There have been herbicide treatments used on parts of the forest. Yeah.
There has been, I don't think we did any in that area, but I know, like in Stanford, there was some spraying, and then, I was like, really, how did a Norway maple get way out here? It's like, but there it was, and so that got cut down because that's not a native tree. It's not invasive. It's not like growing everywhere, but it's, still not native. And then I don't know if you were all out to that area off the Dome Trail 10 years ago, I don't know how much honeysuckle and barberry we pulled, and we had it all hanging in the tree so it wouldn't touch the ground again, or it would sprout again.
Yeah.
As you went up and down those trails in the woods, there was stuff hanging everywhere. So we treated it, and it actually looks pretty good in there from what it did 10 years ago. And if you look at that first landing up the Dome Trail, it's an opening now, like that was all poison parsnip. And like last year when I was there, it was tough to find more than a couple, because again, when we walk through, we see something. If we can pull it, we do. And then, like I said, the timber crew was really good. Who wants to pull poison parsnip? But they do it. We help with the botanists. And again, we don't want that stuff. We don't want those getting into the interior. And so, and just just as important as the invasive is the rare plants that are in the area. And so like, if you were to look out there, it's like, boy, they're 200 feet from a stream, or why are they over here? Well, there was probably a colony or a small amount of a rare plant there that, yes, we weren't going to run over it, but we don't want to like affect like maybe the light that's getting to it, so we stayed a little further away. And we do that. We work with our botanists and as you walk up that trail on this side of the trail, there was all kinds of rare plants. And I'm also gone because it's washed out, which is where that erosion control work hopefully gets in there and does. But did we answer all of that, or was there still a part?
You did, and I do have one more, and I'll shut up. Oftentimes we get these cool projects running through the area, and we don't end up gleaning any new institutional capacity on the local level for them. So I'm wondering, because we've been talking about this for quite a while at the district level, how little capacity there is outside the Forest Service to do prescribed burn on private lands, which, as you know, Vermont is roughly 79% privately owned.
Yeah.
And the closest contractor I can get to come and do a prescribed burn is from South Carolina. So would the Forest Service, I guess, be open to opening up to town fire departments to maybe come out and see how you guys do these prescribed burns? I know in Arlington, they do an annual burn. They actually do it on my farm. But the fact that we're bringing fire back to the landscape is, as somebody who trained out in Oregon, as a wildland fire ecologist, I'd love to see you guys doing that work. But it would also be great if you could pass some of that knowledge on to the community so that outside of your area, and when the resources are tight, we could maybe help manage the landscape.
I think a lot of that comes through funding. It's maybe the Forest Service provides funding and some training. Like when I was on the White Mountains or other, I've been on a lot of forests. People do like me. I just move around because I like to move around. When it was like a small discrete fire in a town, the fire department they would be the first ones up. They'd be in their yellow tops and their green, and they'd be carrying all their equipment up the hill, and we would just kind of mop up or something afterwards to help them. So there is that. I just don't know how, and Martina may know more.
I feel like also with it, have you worked with or contacted anyone with the state? Because right now we're burning currently, like today we did some burns, tomorrow, Sunday, we're gonna be doing some prescribed burns across the Green Mountain National Forest, and we're working crews or staff, not crews, but some staff from the state forest parks and for forest and parks to help us with the prescribed burn. So I between the state and maybe Forest Service, we should definitely like talk. I mean, I have your contact information.
We need to have a
just talk about what the best way to make that happen. But I'm confident that there is a way because we do work and use the state resources to help support our burns. So I don't see why, I definitely think there's a way path forward for that. So
great.
Great.
That'd be fantastic.
Good answer.
I can stop me, but I like the Rocky Hollow, like Melly said, we put the tubes up randomly and, across landscape. But one thing that, I've been here, to see it start from the beginning is like when you want oak back like that and it hasn't been treated the right way for a while, it's a 3-step process. And so we have been going in there for several years and removing intermediate trees, beech, small trees to get the daylight to the ground. Because oak, once we get that oak started, it'll sit there. And then all of a sudden, now you go in and you harvest, where the shelterwood, where you're leaving conditions or it's a small opening or something, that oak is already there. The deer couldn't get to it because it's not very big. Then all of a sudden, wow, daylight. And if you go into where we've burned, there's always mortality. There's some trees that get burned a little hotter. And if you walk up there, it's like you can't even see. Just in the 5 years, it is like 10 feet tall. It just needed the daylight and the right conditions. And the deer, yes, they're gonna browse. There's enough other trees out there, but it's like when the conditions right, it is fast. oak just sits there for years and percolates, and then it goes. But like Melly said, we really would like that, when we are doing things to get the public out to these areas and
definitely.
introduce them to the area.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's. So I've been sitting here for 6 years and this is the first time we've ever had this. Visit, right? It's exciting for me to see this, because. I like the ideas of going in and doing these small cuts. I know, I've hunted Maine when they go in and do the 200-acre clear cuts,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Years ago,
Yeah, with a spruce budworm.
right?
Yep.
And then now when they go in and do the 20 or
30, yeah.
or 30-acre, cuts, and then you leave 30 acres and whatever, it's, I've seen both sides of it. So I think it's exciting, first, that everything that we've heard tonight, from my standpoint, the vast, right?
Mhm.
Maybe we can work with that. The cuts and everything is finally somebody's actually caring about what's going on.
Yeah.
Kind of my theory.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate your time and I'm glad to be here. And I think, yeah, it's important to recognize like it's going to look different. The landscape's going to change. It's going to be different than what people are used to seeing. And I would love to be able to get out there with folks and talk about, why are we making these decisions? Because I think it's easy to get caught up on terms, clear cut, shelterwood. What does that mean? So I think it's good to have people out there and say, why did we put a clear cut here? Why are we expanding this wildlife opening? What birds, what wildlife need that? So I think it's great to have people out there and to talk about it. So I would love.
Education is a huge part of it, right?
Yeah.
We've opened that door.
Yeah.
And I think we kicked it open tonight. Honestly, I don't think we just cracked it. I think it got kicked open tonight, and I appreciate that from all four of you, honestly, because I think that's gonna be our single biggest hurdle from residents and people that live here is the education piece of it, that this isn't just driven to cut down trees to make some 2x4s. Right? This is for a lot of things. The wildfires that Jeannie was talking about in Canada, right? To control that. There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle. This isn't a 50-piece jigsaw puzzle, right? This is your 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle.
And we're unique. We are a large landholder, so we can do this across the landscape instead of just somebody's 50-acre lot or less.
Right.
Sometimes I think that's the difference between someone who thinks of themselves as an environmentalist versus an ecologist, right? And understand that whole notion that we've had for so many years, just don't touch it. And I feel like that is the worst thing we can do right now.
Mhm.
So I appreciate you learning.
Thank you.
Time, sorry.
Yeah.
No, there's an important thing, and I think one of the most important parts of it, honestly, is the education piece that, when you go and start talking about the trail coming from, there's education for both the trail system and what you're doing, and then there's education for you, it's all part of it.
And, you see that we've made a commitment to this area for the harvesting for a lot of years. If you have local operators that are like looking for work or maybe to purchase a sale or to be like a subcontractor, just have them, give them my information or just have them contact me. I'll put them on our list for mailing. The town, I'm going to put you on my list so that when we have a timber sale, you receive an email notice with the prospectus and like the bid letter so that you could probably put it on your site and a map, so that people can see where we're planning.
This is great, I really appreciate it.
We appreciate being invited. It's
Yeah.
No, thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
I'll email you again.
Thanks so much.
Okay, Act 180 discussion with Michael Fernandez of the Bennington County Conservation District.
Here we go. One. Okay. So we had a much shorter item that with Nate, but we can get right into this if y'all want to.
Yep. Oh, that's our next agenda item, so.
I don't think he minds waiting.
That's fine. So I understand that Michael Fernandez, District Manager of the Bennington County Conservation District, Regional Commissioner for Conservation at the Bennington County Regional Commission. Tara asked if I would come kind of be a sounding board for concerns that you all have about Act 181. There's a lot of influx right now in the legislature, as I'm sure you all are aware. Just to give, I don't know if there's an audience right now, the context, Act 2081 passed in 2024 via supermajority over a gubernatorial veto. It established a fundamental shift in the statewide land regulation process that was initially established through Act 250, moving conceptually, and I think this is the easiest way to try and wrap folks' heads around it, moving from a project-based jurisdictional trigger to a place-based jurisdictional trigger. And essentially what that means is under previous iterations of Act 250, there's been the 3-acre rule and the half-acre rule, meaning if you are creating a substantial amount of impervious surface that would impact stormwater, the watershed, et cetera, you would need to pursue various permits and go through an Act 250 permitting process. That process can range from somewhat extensive to extremely extensive, depending on the scale of the project. Act 250 has historically had its critics. Some people say it doesn't go far enough. Some people says it goes entirely too far. But historically, Act 250 was initially established because I believe 8 out of Vermont's roughly 256 total towns had local zoning ordinances in place. So that history, I think, is important to recognize that Act 250 was developed in response to a lack of land use planning at the local level. And it has developed over time to the state that it currently is in. Act 181 initially, as I understand it from the legislative record, which I've reviewed extensively and spoken to all of the co-sponsors of the bill, initially started as just a housing bill. It was just the tier 1A and 1B fast track zones for housing development, specifically the 50 unit with affordable housing criteria included in the tier 1B. And the regional commissions were tasked with utilizing existing town plans. And this is one area that we've heard a lot of confusion on. Why is my tier 1A and 1B area in that place? That place floods all the time. And the legislative language is somewhat specific in that it is historic village centers and the village and town centers that were delineated in the town plans. And from my conversations with planning commissions and select boards around the county, this is not my first time getting called in on this. Will be your last. Nor will it be my last. It wasn't, there is a feeling that wasn't made clear, that towns could request a change to their town plan through their planning commissions to shift where those tier 1A and B areas are, to move them out of the floodplain. One area of the discussion that has also not really come to fruition at this point is there are multiple regulatory overlays, and this is something I've been trying to communicate to all the towns that have been calling me in. There are multiple new regulatory overlays and triggers beyond Act 250 and Act 181. Those being the updated wetlands maps, which we're actually in the process of booking venues to host a listening session on that in partnership with DEC. That is likely going to be in towards the end of May, beginning of June, and I will keep everyone appraised of that. Other parts of the state have already undergone that change, the Connecticut River Basin, the Memphremagog Basin, the Champlain Basin, and the Northeast Kingdom. Actually, no, not the Northeast Kingdom, the Northeast Kingdom and the Hudson and South Lake Champlain area is being finalized this year. And that is part of the Flood Safety Act, which passed after the 2023 floods, which also includes, it included an update to the wetlands maps that is very comprehensive, and could possibly deserve a little criticism. It was very quickly done, very similar to Tier 3. It's all GIS-based mapping, no ground truthing. Do you have a question?
I do, but.
Yeah.
When you're,
I could literally talk about this for hours, so if people have questions, please just jump in.
concerns, which is probably never gonna go anywhere, but I definitely want to get it out there. One of the concerns I have, especially on the flooding portion of the state, and specifically, I'm gonna talk specifically of Pelham because that's what I know.
Yeah.
It's my personal belief, and it could be totally out there, I don't know. But I think part of our flooding problem that we have and will continue to have is that areas that when I was a child and a young adult were, I don't want to say reservoir, but they were a water holding area that are now filled in.
Yeah.
Okay, and I can give you two examples right here, one right here in on Center Street. Right, and one by the school.
Yeah.
Those were not grassy areas, those were water areas. Right, and it's my belief that that's part of our trouble, right, because now we have, and I'm not pointing fingers at you, because that's not your, that's not you, right? Well, but I, it's my belief, Michael, that's part of our trouble, is because we can't touch a cattail. Because God forbid, right, it's a cattail and it's never gonna grow again, well, let me tell you, they do. So I think we've created. The human nature has created some of the flooding problem.
So that's a very complicated question or statement rather. Hydrologically, the displacement of impoundment does create some, because those impoundments can be utilized to regulate flow in a similar way to a beaver dam. The difference between a beaver dam and a human constructed dam is when the beaver dam starts to fill in, the beavers move and build another dam. Create another wetlands, the area upstream becomes more of a meadow, and it's a shifting mosaic of wet spots, dry spots. We also have centuries of river straightening, river infill. So you're right, I would go just further back historically, as far back as there have been settlers in this area, and since beaver trapping began, we have I think 10% of our original indigenous population of beaver in North America compared to first contact, due to the trapping trade, and this area was a very heavy area for trapping. And that wildlife largely acted as the flood regulators. There's that part. It's incredibly expensive to remove those dams, and Bennington County has historically not been an area that received that funding from the Clean Water Fund. I worked very hard in my first years as district manager to change that. It is now, Bennington County is specifically designated as a high priority water quality area for water quality projects. The problem being that districts, we don't have the capital to pursue those projects. The state will sometimes take months to years to pay those invoices back, so we can't actually pursue those in a meaningful way, and towns probably can't either. There's mid 6-figure to low 7-figure projects sometimes. And there's also, not to wade too quickly into controversial waters, but climate change is having a big impact on this as well. We're having more frequent peak precipitation events. I've responded in my 4 years of the district to 6 climate-related natural disasters. And there's also a less widely discussed dynamic wherein we have a lot of our river corridors, a lot of our areas that should be absorbing the most water due to a variety of anthropogenic and natural factors. We've created a lot of hardpan in our crop fields and our home areas where I will go out to do a soil infiltration test on an area that the map says I should be able to infiltrate 1 inch to 2 inches of rainfall per hour. And I will hammer my little ring in there. I will pour some water in there. I'll go to another site visit. I'll come back 6 hours later and that water down 1 millimeter. So there is a multifaceted, historic, and serious, widespread ecological issue with our watersheds all over Vermont, all over New England. Going back to the Laurentide ice sheet, there's a lot that we can do about it. I've given workshops on the Vermont rip sower, on soil remediation, agroecology, so utilizing more crop trees instead of annual crops to reduce tillage volume, wider riparian buffers that can be functional and harvested by landowners for food or firewood, etc. We also, as you were just hearing from our friends at the Green Mountain National Forest, we have a lot of even-aged timber stands in our upper watersheds that don't have the necessary structural complexity to actually provide the ecosystem service, as we call it in the egghead world, for flood mitigation that is typically considered as a fundamental value that forests provide to their surrounding communities.
So in other words, a lack of polyculture.
Lack of polyculture, lack of structural diversity, lack of duff, because I'll walk through sugar bushes these days that have jumping more. And duff layers that should be this deep are non-existent. And all of those things combined is where leading us to where we are today. So it's incredibly complicated. But there are a lot of things that we can do about it.
I got 2 questions. Question 1, could you elaborate a little bit more on the fact that they're using GIS to delineate versus actually going out? Because I've seen some severe mistakes on the BCRC new map.
Yeah. How should I say this? I didn't exactly prepare testimony
That's fine.
this evening.
Let it roll.
Well, so
There is.
are we getting off the subject?
No, we're not. We're not. I also think it's really important to not shoehorn ourselves into just 181, because the 181 is part of a legal ecosystem, as I've been starting to call it in my head, that are all happening at the same time,
Right.
that are all impacting our constituents simultaneously. And the fact that it isn't being looked at in a more comprehensive way is one of the things that's causing a lot of the confusion. And I think I can predict this. I'd bet $1 against your dollar that a year from now, we're going to be back in this exact same position talking about Act 121 as opposed to Act 181, because they've created a conflict between river corridor regulation and housing with that bill. But can you repeat your question? Sorry.
Mike, because I've noticed in a few of the places that they just kind of did GIS.
Mhm.
They didn't actually look to see what was there. They just kind of, okay, yep, this is forest, even though it's in the middle of the village. Yep.
So you're talking about the tier 3 designations or
Be the
the future land use?
the future land use,
The FLUs.
which is part of Act 181.
So can you, if I could just, for clarification, for people who are either watching now or who will watch in the future, could you sort of take a bird's eye view? And you've been monthly a lot, you've testified a lot. So to your question, Carl, like, to familiarize people with the tier system, and the shortest complaints and the areas that you have focused your testimony on and things that we should be thinking about.
Yeah, I can. I actually first called for the delay in 181 back at our 2024 local working group meeting. Right after it passed, we felt, the staff, the board, that there wasn't sufficient public engagement process or funding built in to successfully engage with the public around these very significant changes, the tier 3 areas in particular, because they are in effect a form of regulatory taking. They're going to, if that tier had remained, which at this point it does not look like it is remaining.
Well, I want to be clear, they haven't taken it out.
Correct. Right. There's from what I hear, Legislative Council is drafting the language for them to vote on right now. So they've taken the voice vote.
So I see it.
Exactly. I'm in the same place you are. I've watched the test. It's in the background while I'm listening, while I'm making my coffee in the morning, the testimony for the day before every day, which is not fun. I would much rather be watching Sunday morning cartoons. So tier 1A, 1B. Those are your historic village centers identified in the future land use maps, which town plans are being used to designate. So if you have an existing town plan, which every town in the state has to, depending on, when did Pownell last update its town plan?
It's expiring soon, 2027.
Okay, so they would have used the soon to be expired town plan to designate those tier 1A and 1B areas, and that was under the regional commissions. They were tasked with that. As far as I know, they weren't given a significant amount of funding to do that, which is part of why there's been such a heavy reliance on GIS. Back when the districts first started, back in the 30s and 40s, everything was ground truth because these mapping systems didn't exist, right? And it was all done with volunteers and local landowners. But now it's a very high paid profession. You'd have to pay somebody that's making close to $150,000 a year, that amount of money to walk around, knock on everybody's door and do all this. So part of it is expense. Also, part of it is the regional commissions rely on towns, the engagement level of the constituents of the town, going to planning commission meetings and having kind of a continuous process, which, as we all know, is incredibly difficult. People are time poor, people are cash poor, and you basically need a master in public policy to understand any of this stuff. And it's, as somebody who translates technocratic gobbledygook to everyday speak for a living, it's hard to keep up. It's a fire hose coming from Montpelier since 2020. So you've got your tier 1A, 1B areas. Those are areas that are now exempt from Act 250.
Yep.
Under planning, under the zoning bylaws of the town, the planning commission will have authority. Although a developer could appeal to the land use review board to supersede the towns. I believe that's still in the language. And the areas that are going to be favored for funding to receive tax credits, grants, et cetera, are all areas that currently have municipal wastewater facilities. So that is not most of our towns. Does Pownell have municipal?
Yes.
We have
wastewater?
municipal
Okay.
sewer.
You have municipal sewer.
And that was a quick question. Is it municipal sewer and water or just municipal sewer?
Municipal sewer. That's the main thing, as I understand it. It's a very complicated bill, so.
Yeah, no, I'm not because, okay.
I was preparing to do a fully fledged listening session. I'm still gonna do it. It's over at Crystal Gardner's store on May 19th. Pownell, come out. We'll talk about this even more. It'll be so much fun for me. So we've got those tiers. Time?
On the.
We're starting at 4. If people want us to move later, we will. We're pretty accessible. People will knock on my door all the time. It's funny. So that's your 1A, 1B areas. It sounds like Pownell is potentially a good candidate for that. Besides the fact that those historic village centers are largely within floodplains at this point. So you can, by changing your town plan with your planning commission, you can request an early update from the regional commission. The planning commission can say, okay, we want to move our concentrated housing growth area somewhere else. Regional commission will approve that or not. They'll take it to the LURB. The LURB will approve that or not. Excuse me. I've been talking all day. Then we've got tier 2. Tier 2 was our catch-all. It was everything else. And with tier 2 came the reassertion, I believe it was in early 2000s or late 90s, that there was initially a road rule proposed. Similar response from what I've read from the papers back then. I was 5 and lived in Florida at the time. But there was an attempt to do the road rule. It was much more limited, but that was an 800-foot road or 2,000-foot network of roads. What is a road and what is a driveway was not defined in statute. That was allowed to go through the administrative rulemaking process. And that would have triggered Act 250 jurisdiction as well. So one of the major gripes that the working lands community, especially the forestry and agriculture sectors, had with that is there is almost a universal correlation between new home construction on rural lands and working lands business formation. And I can speak to that as someone who is currently building an ADU on my farm because I need a place for me to live so that my parents can age in place with me. So that was one of the major issues because agricultural activities were exempt, but not the people doing the agricultural activities. So that was a very important distinction. And that is one of the provisions that is up on the chopping block right now, going back and forth on SB 25. There's a reason I'm watching the testimony every day. I have a fair amount of trust in the legislators that I have talked to. House Environment has been hearing that. The process originally, if you go back to the 2024 legislative record, it was pretty much just lobbying groups and the regional commissions in those rooms. Like people can check. I'm not fibbing here. It was about the same, like 10, 15 groups, about 20, 30 people in those rooms. And that isn't atypical in Montpelier. It's very, especially for residents down here, like it's a huge burden for every time I get called up to testify in person, because that's a whole workday gone for me. And I can't bill for it. I can't really bill for the mileage. There's no grant for me to put it on. So I just lose a whole day and just have to work another day. But I have felt a significant shift in the tone and attitude of the legislature over this last month, basically, since all of this has really started in earnest, which was really gratifying to see as somebody who's been shouting about this for 2 years. And I think we are going to see some substantial changes, probably going to see the full repeal of Tier 3 in the road rule. But I think it is important to look in retrospect at how the Tier 3 designations were decided, because it's frankly troubling to me as somebody who helps landowners navigate land use regulations every day. From what I have gleaned from mostly conversations with the Land Access and Opportunity Board, which has been consistently attending these meetings, as well as the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, which I'm assuming Pownell's probably a member of. Yeah. VLCT was pivotal in repeal. But I can't stress enough how much VACD, our state association, but really the Vermont League of Cities and Towns and the Land Access and Opportunity Board, they really stepped up. They stuck their necks out, and they communicated that their constituents, their members, were not happy with this and they wanted to see it go. And that's when I really started to see the tide changing in the room.
Spell out Tier 3.
Yeah, it's
So what the LURB did, they were given a list of categories to consider for tier 3 permanent protection. And from what I understand happens, they looked at those potential jurisdictional triggers, and rather than look at the most realistic and beneficial conditions for actual wildlife habitat connectivity, which is hydrologic connectivity, and high elevation connectivity. That is how wildlife moves, for the most part. They didn't have any real hard data from Vermont Fish and Wildlife. That data is incredibly expensive to collect. It's totally understandable that they don't know exactly where. Hunters do, but the government, not so much. And frankly, I think that's a good thing in a lot of ways, that some of that information is illegible. But what they did was they looked at all of these different potential jurisdictional triggers, and they said, okay, we already have river corridor protections going in, that's 121. We already have wetland protections, that's the Vermont wetlands rules. We already have riparian buffers protected, again, Act 121. And they looked at the habitat connector criteria and said, okay, we don't have a way to regulate that yet. And since they didn't have hard data on where actual wildlife movement was, they came up with a conceptual model saying that if we're going to take Vermont conservation design, are you all familiar with Vermont conservation design? Because that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do it without going too far deep.
Right. Vermont conservation design has been a software, another GIS platform that Fish and Wildlife has been rolling out, I think for 3 years now, maybe 4. It was used heavily in the development of Act 59 and the implementation of Act 59, which is the Community Resilience and Biodiversity Act. We held a listening session on that in Arlington. God, was that only 3 weeks ago? I think it was only 3 weeks ago. So that platform maps core habitat, habitat corridors, rare, threatened, endangered communities, and they identified the Taconic Range, Green Mountain, obviously, but it's already federally protected, so they didn't need to do anything with that. So the Taconic Range, the Valley of Vermont, Lake Champlain Basin, especially Addison County, to try and figure out, because Vermont is considered this incredibly important wildlife corridor because we're relatively undeveloped. Adirondack State Park already exists right next door. But it's considered a major connector from the mid-Atlantic and the upper Midwest up into Canada and the St. John's. What's that estuary that runs by Quebec?
St. Lawrence.
St. Lawrence, that's it. So yeah, up into Canada. So we're viewed kind of as that highway for wildlife to move up into the St. Lawrence Seaway and up into the untamed wilds of northern Canada. So Vermont conservation design is the platform being utilized to make decisions around things like Act 181, Act 59, Act 121. So it's another mapping tool that a lot of people, myself included, advocated for those layers to just be added to the Vermont A&R Atlas so people could see all of them at once instead of siloing them off into different things. And unless there's more questions about Vermont conservation design, I'm going to pivot back to tier 3. So the novel theory that was utilized by the Land Use Review Board and really by Fish and Wildlife, because they were the ones setting the criteria for the LURB to enforce and map, was if we look at the map and it's an area along a major roadway that is connecting two habitat blocks is heavily forested, over 80% forested, we're going to consider that a habitat connector. So there are instances, and I'm happy to pause for questions after I get this out. There are instances that I have seen, I spent a lot of time on the tier 3 maps, where you'll see small lot, grand list value, $30,000 to $60,000 for the trailer on it. Same. Big 120-acre lot, grand list value 1.5 million. The guy has the money to mow the lawn and not let it go up into forest. Tier 3 goes right around him. So it'll be tier 3 along all these forested parcels, along town highways, town roads. It'll skip over because the criteria say it has to be along the roadway, it has to be forested 800 feet off the road. So you'll have wealthier people who can afford landscapers. It'll jump over their property. That won't be designated tier 3, and it'll start right over on the other
It
side.
actually encourages them.
It in a way, it encourages bad stewardship. Because we've been in this state encouraging people to let their property reforest for 50 years now, probably closer to 60 years, going all the way back into the mid to early 1960s to today, when like Ken Leach up in Rupert has shown me pictures that you can see his grandfather's cows silhouetted on the ridge line of the Green Mountains, 10 miles away. Since then, private landowners, public landowners in this state have done the incredible, expensive work of starting to heal Vermont's ecosystems.
Well, that same thing that you just talked about actually does another thing, which is even worse. Now it makes it a class thing.
Yep.
Class 3 is for the lower class. Not having class 3 is for the upper class.
That is a big part of why we have spent so many resources testifying, convening, and communicating the criticisms of our constituency to the legislature, because we feel that way as well. That it's really unfortunate because we're already seeing, like, I've had dozens of site visits cancel. People are talking about clear cutting their properties, building really ill-advised roads, just
to build them because
they don't know. Right. It's injected a lot of uncertainty, and I do feel as though the tone and tenor of the conversation in the early days of this debate resurfacing, because there was a debate at the time, has set the cause of ecological restoration and conservation back 50 years in the state. And that's, to me, the worst part about all of this, because it got fought back. There's this really powerful grassroots movement that emerged out of all of this. But it unfortunately has turned a lot of people off to working with organizations like ours that had nothing to do with this. We fought it tooth and nail the whole time. We stand by our residents and believe they do good work, often better work than state agencies are able to do. And it's broken the trust in a way that I don't think is going to be repaired anytime soon. And I wish that weren't so. But at the end of the day, once you start getting people from far away circling your property and potentially plummeting the resale value, and your main asset is that property, how are you going to trust that process ever again? I don't know how you do that. And I do this for a living.
It's 25 years, generation.
Yeah.
You get that close to that trust back.
Yeah.
But you have some, with confidence is the right word, that this will be cut from it, the tier 3.
The tier 3 will be repealed. I'm fully confident tier 3 will be repealed. There's no meaningful support left in the legislature, at least not in the House, probably in the Senate as well. That doesn't mean that some iteration of it isn't going to come back. And one of the things that we've been talking about statewide with the Vermont Council on Rural Development, the Land Access and Opportunity Board, and conservation districts is, okay, we need to get out and we need to talk to people, and we need to see how can we rebuild the trust. Is there a system that can genuinely can pass the public smell test to both protect the since the formation of the Vermont Republic, let alone the state of Vermont, we're real big on private property in this state. It's written into the Constitution. So how can we, as the on the ground organizations that, we're born out of our constituencies. I live here, my board all lives here, my board's all volunteers. And we've been here for 85 years. I think we have good relationships with the towns that we serve. How can we maybe take some of this power back and relocalize it? Because the intent, and I hate that I'm saying this because it drives me insane, the intent of legislation doesn't mean anything. How it actually impacts people on the ground is what means something. And using we intended to do this, but it did something else excuse drives me up a wall, because it's usually hundreds of hours of unbillable, like very limited resource organization here. We spend hundreds of hours dealing with these mess ups. How can we relocalize this? Because the original intent of 181 was actually to remove Act 250 jurisdiction for the first time since its inception. How can we start rolling back Act 250 in recognition of the fact that we've gone from 8 towns in the entire state having municipal zoning to, I think we're at 87% of all towns in the state having municipal zoning. So how can we start giving that power back to communities? They started really small with these tier 1A areas and then didn't define very well what the tier 3 areas were. And it ended up being more Act 250 jurisdiction in the poorest towns that could least afford to actually comply with those Act 250 jurisdictions.
One of the things that bothers me, maybe more than, well, there's a couple things. One of the things that bothers me is with sort of all of it, whether no matter which tier you choose, okay, 1, 2, or 3, 1A, 1B, 2, or 3, you have potentially taken away 100% of your local control. Okay, so why does the town have a planning commission? Why does the town have a development review board? Why does the town have a zoning administrator? Because the land use regulation board is going to override, or potentially, right, could override whatever goes on. So I don't want to be telling somebody in Ferrisburg how to handle what's going on in their town.
Mhm.
I don't know Ferrisburg. Right? The same as I don't want somebody from Ferrisburg, I'm just using that as an example, right? Telling me or anybody else down here how to do things with their property. That to me, this is what Vermont is. To me, this is what should happen in every town. Now, I do understand too that you need some oversight, because years ago, you had a lot of different things that potentially happened or did happen.
Mhm.
And potentially could in a development or whatever, right? Because there was just things just didn't get done the way they should. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. So you do need some oversight for certain things, and I totally agree with that. But when you come in and tell somebody they can't build an 800 or 850-foot logging road and get into their property to log their to cut their firewood,
Yeah.
to heat their house, or whatever, I got a problem with that.
Yeah.
It's just me, you do too.
Here's the worst part, Mark. Here's the worst part. It's not telling you that you can't build it, but making it so expensive for you to build it, because now you're going through an Act 250 process.
Right.
Which they're gonna turn around and say, no, you have 50 foot wide, you've gotta have it crest just right, you've gotta have your wastewaters. That is the insidious part of it.
Well, and in all fairness, I'll be the devil's advocate here. It's part of the cause of that is the person who went in there and built the road
On a terrible slope.
Yeah,
It just becomes
on a 45% slope for, you gotta winch yourself up.
Well,
And
and there's,
then you fly down it, that happens.
Right, that does happen, sharing with you 100%. But also, there's not an exclusion to just those properties and those roads.
That's right, Todd.
and there's also another consideration, and we do see this on occasion. There are instances where we'll have a corporation move in, a big corporate developer, whether it's something massive, like we talk about Shropshire Solar, we talk about like a whole bunch of things that have, their balance sheet is as high as the total town budgets of every town in Bennington County, possibly.
Right.
There are companies that have more in gross revenue in a year than we collect in taxes in a year. So how can we as a state both allow local control of natural resource management and land use planning while protecting our citizenry and our volunteer select boards from being subject to slap lawsuits and out-of-state developers coming in and buying up all the land and building a bedroom community for Albany that nobody wants. And these are conversations that need to happen, and they need to happen at a local level, and we all need to figure this out together. 600 something thousand people in the state. There were more people in my neighborhood growing up. We can talk to each other, and that's one of the things that made me fall in love with this state, made me want to put down roots here, and made me want to die here, is we can actually get around a table as a community and figure stuff out. And I think there's been a long history of assuming that, and it comes from a somewhat paternalistic place, but that Montpelier is trying to help the towns by passing these laws because it will reduce the administrative burden on the planning commissions and on the DRBs by giving the towns this smaller, more concentrated development area. And this is all speculation on my part. Let me just make it clear. But I think some of the intent was hyper concentrate the housing development to try and address the housing crisis. And then there was a siloed conversation that goes on. This happens all the time in state government. It's what all these different mapping softwares are. We call them administrative silos. So you'll have this silo going on over here about housing, and all the people on this particular board all went to the same type of schools. They have the same subspecialties. They get paid really, really well. They have administrative support staff. And I think it's like $5.6 million that the LERB got paid, like all their staff and everything. It was a huge amount of money to develop all of this. And they'll be having this conversation over here. And then we'll be having this conversation over here about Act 59. They both feed into each other, but we never talk to each other because we were told not to. Because there's no comprehensive assessment built in to any of these laws to say, okay, 181, we're going to try and fast track housing. Same year, we're going to pass 121, pass river corridor regulations. So all the places that currently are getting tiered 1A and 1B, by the end of next year, they're going to be subject to river corridor regulations, which those even haven't been started getting written yet. But to actually protect a river corridor would make Act 250 look like nothing. Like that's just no development, not only no development, but rewilding to like reduce, reconnect floodplains so that we're not flooding out areas downstream. And then hopefully our neighbors over in Massachusetts do the same thing so they're not flooding out us. And like this, one of the things I love about this area in particular was the old tram system they used to run back and forth between Williamstown, Hoosick Falls, Cambridge, all that. Like this used to be a really interconnected area, and it's not so much. It doesn't feel that way anymore. But these are conversations that we should be having across state lines. They should be watershed-based conversations, especially around natural resource management, because the watershed is it's physics. You can't fight physics at the end of the day. And making circles on a map based on outdated or incorrect USDA hydrologic or hydric soils maps. When we're going through what's possibly one of the most critical moments to, like, for some of you, it's your grandchildren. For me, it's my potential future children. Like, how is this going to look for the next 7 generations? And that conversation can't just happen in Montpelier. It has to happen in every town all the time until we figure this out together. Because if everybody isn't on board, what happens is what has just happened. We waste an entire year, an entire legislative session arguing about a couple words in a statute when we could have been out doing what me and Nate are going to be talking about in a minute and actually restoring ecosystems, building banks back up and working together to solve our collective problems. So it's been very frustrating. I've been hearing it from, like, if anybody's tried to call me in the last month, you can't because my phone is just basically dead from all the voicemails buffering in my cloud. So thank you, Tara, for emailing me. But yeah, I do think the worst, my honest assessment is I think the worst of Act 181 is going to be repealed. I think that we're going to have to all work really hard, select boards, planning commissions, DRBs, conservation districts, conservation commissions, to make sure that we're getting our fair share of the grant funding, because historically that has not been Bennington County's forte. Getting our fair share, we're like 6% of the state's population, about 6.5% of the state's tax base. But for clean water funding, I think we've received 0.0007% of the clean water fund since it was initially formed in 2016. I've been trying to fix that. A lot of people have been trying to fix that. We're starting to turn the corner there. But we're just going to have to all pull on the same oar for a little while.
Quick question, please. Short as you, will the change in the tier 3 affect the timetable of the BCR mapping?
Well, no, I don't think so. I would actually refer that to a regional commission staffer.
Okay,
Regional
that's fine. I just
commissioners,
was wondering, that's all.
yeah, regional commissioners we're not really involved in the day-to-day at all.
Okay.
But since the regional commissions were only dealing with the tier 1A and B, didn't touch tier 3 at all.
Okay.
I don't
All
think
right,
that's going to be
thank
changed.
you.
We have any more questions? But I know I apologize to anyone watching and listening and or future people who are gonna watch, listen, but I felt this was an incredibly important thing for our town and our residents to, if they weren't already aware of it, be made aware of it. And I also think it's an incredibly important thing for this board to know and have the knowledge about what's going on. And then make a decision on how we feel.
I mean, select board meetings are gonna run late sometimes because we're trying to make the best decisions for our neighbors. And so we really appreciate all of your time.
I was up in Win Hall until 11 o'clock on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I'm fine.
I read that.
Yeah.
I think are you on that part? And not sitting here going, no.
So. Does the board have any more questions? You're doing a great job on giving us kind of the grassroots of what's going on and back.
And I'd really encourage y'all that, look, if we might need to change venues, but we're going to try our best to do a really comprehensive overview of not just Act 181, but all of the major regulatory land use changes that have passed since 2020. So there's been a lot of them. I'm going to do my best. We have a limited staff and we're not funded to do it. But we're going to try and, for those of you that have been to listening sessions, really more visioning sessions with me in the past, we've gotten pretty good at it, and the legislature is listening right now. So if people in this area have a vision for what you want land use regulation to look like, now is the time to come and say your piece, and we'll fight for it.
You're talking about May the 19th.
May 19th. Yeah. May 19th, and we've got 6 scheduled around the county.
Yes.
Now, yeah.
You guys keep saying May 19th, which I understand that we need more sessions, but isn't our deadline on April 30th?
For public comment.
Okay.
Yep. We're not talking to the LURB, we're talking to the legislature.
understand that, but I have other questions.
What's the board's pleasure on this? Act 181? Your opinion?
I have another question. Have you done any training as Wayne for this specific? No.
I haven't done any training, but
I mean, I know you're listening.
I've been educating myself on Act 181 as much as time allows, which
Okay.
there's an incredible, like old time, there's an incredible amount of information here.
Oh, I
Well,
think
the tier, so I'll be honest, Julie, that's a good question. 1A and 1B, I haven't spent a whole bunch of time on that because that's our village areas and that to me is where our development should be, you know, to a certain degree, right? Our houses and, you know, through our village and our commercial districts. But our outlying areas, when they come in and they wanna control. Like I said, when they wanna come in and control everything that goes on,
one of our, so,
well. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. So I mean, honestly, that's, yeah, well, I guess probably I don't want farms to go either, cause you know, I have a vested interest there, so.
I think what we could do then is consider whether or not as a select board, we want to produce a statement, sent to the legislature. And work on that, or what are you seeing, Michael, that's more effective coming out of towns right now?
Given the it never hurts to reach out to your legislators.
Well, we're definitely gonna do that.
To affirm their decision to repeal tier 2 or the road rule and tier 3. Because once tier 3 doesn't exist, there really isn't a tier 2. It's just as long as the road rule's gone, tier 2 we just have tier 1A and B, and we can call it something else now. What I would really strongly recommend is before the public comment deadline, because this one is important. We're talking about something else on the 19th. Is decide whether your 1A and B areas are large enough to accommodate real growth. Like, do you want to have a 5 to 7 to 10 story apartment complex in Pownell that has 50 housing units in it? Or do you want, have the planning commission and probably you all meet and figure out, do we need to do a rapid fire update of the town plan? Do these areas need to be bigger? And re-engage with the regional commission. Nick Zayak is these are good people. I have no qualms with the individual people involved in this. But reach back out to the regional commission, review whether your tier 1A and B areas are appropriately cited in relation to floodplains, in relation to river corridors, and in relation to the character of the town, and whether you want to expand or move those areas. And that you need to do that quickly. You need to do that very quickly. I'd say email Nick tomorrow and try and set up a talk.
Well, I think there's a couple of things that are gonna happen. Almost a little bit unique, right? The river corridor is right now, this river corridor is in our village commercial district. But the river corridor act is not gonna allow development down to the river corridor.
As far as we know, we have no idea, but most likely, yes.
So based on knowledge that we have available to us now. So. Which leaves us with our tier 1A, 1B zones areas would be the Route 7 corridor. Right, and there's not a significant. There's not a significant amount of acreage in the 1A and 1B areas. given the topography of the way the town's laid out, that you could expand that.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, you know, it's just. You know, you gotta do it, you gotta do it all, right?
It has town sewer, am I correct? Or is it just one?
Would need, both need sewer.
All right, that limits it right down.
So I don't think we can expand our. 1A and 1B areas, we're gonna lose. The river corridor, parts of it for sure, in the flood, we're gonna lose that anyway.
Mhm.
So we're gonna be kind of limited on what we can do. In my opinion, and that's just from the zoning, what I do know about that part of it.
And it's the overview.
So I think what we actually need to do is just reach out to legislators, because we have been doing it, affirm that we support the repeal. Yeah.
So the road rule and tier 3. I think that's the course of action that we should, as a board. Draft a statement, craft a statement to the legislator, to Jonathan to be delivered to Mount Bennett.
Have them all in a group email now.
Make sure it gets sent to the Senate as well.
Yeah, they're all the same email chain from when we did.
Oh, okay. So I think we should craft that,
Happy to draft the initial draft and circulate it.
that'd be great.
I'll send it to.
And you can submit that as part of the public comment for the LURB as well. Like
And that has to be submitted before the 30th, so.
yeah. They might be extending that public comment period, given how mad everybody is right now.
Well, I'm not planning for a late.
Yep.
So we wanna come back here on the 29th.
I have a hard time on Wednesday meetings, and I think Hannah does too. We both have our children.
The 28th is a.
BCA or Board of Abatement
Right.
And
at 5:30.
if we're planning to have the planning commission, I would be.
I would,
We could do the 28th, we could come meet after the.
yeah, I'm fine with that, I just think we need to make sure, I don't wanna go on a hope that they're gonna, be on a extend the 30th, I'd rather get it done. And it should be a fairly quick thing, we draft a letter, and then we come in and vote on a letter and get out
Can
of
I make
here.
a suggestion? She drafts fairly quickly, she knows what she's doing, why can't we check it out when we're supposed to come here on Saturday?
Well, because we can't add it to our meeting, because it's a special meeting.
But is it necessary to approve what Jeannie's sending, or can,
Can't
I think the basic
add
gist
her
is that you
agenda.
support the repeal.
I'm comfortable with,
I mean, I will circulate it before the.
Yeah, and
28th.
I think that there's certainly a trust with Jeannie sending that letter. I mean, we can schedule a quick
Yeah. we'll have to-
afternoon meeting if you want.
Well, I think also, like, so let's say that we were meeting on the 28th after the Board of Abatements, briefly. Before that time, though, I can get the draft to you so that you can circulate to the rest of the board. I mean, does that work?
what time is the BCA meeting?
I.
Why couldn't we do a select board meeting at 5 o'clock on the 28th?
Yeah, what I mean by circulate to them is just send it out as an email. So people can read it before we get to.
Oh,
the
yeah,
other
definitely.
meeting.
That's.
Yeah.
Why couldn't we do it at 5 o'clock on
Like,
Or
trouble.
gonna be here anyways?
Yeah.
5 o'clock on the 28th, special board meeting just for that letter to please. Great. Michael, thank you.
I think Michael wants to get on to the next step.
Well, and I'm seeing Cat TV on there. I really hope I don't end up getting my budget cut and fired over this. I've tried to build a reputation up as an honest arbiter of what we're seeing. So
Think,
whatever happens, happens, I guess.
All right, well, I'll try and save Michael's voice as much as possible and
Please.
make this as quick as possible. The Conservation Commission identified a spot along Hoosick Bend Trail where there was a landslide that happened, I think last year. And so we put up some snow fencing, but now we would like to work with the BCCD to do some additional mitigation work to try and help prevent that from getting any worse. So Michael has worked with some really great volunteers to harvest some willow.
So we have 3 species that we'll be planting, and we have a 2-phase plan. Phase 1, we have red maple, red osier dogwood, and white willow that my team and I have propagated from mostly my farm up in Arlington. We have 300 white willow, 400 red osier dogwood. We're not going to use them all for this project. And a more limited number of red maple. What we would like to do is give those clones another maybe 2 or 3 weeks to finish rooting out in our air printing beds up in our nursery at the Vermont Veterans Home, and then go out with a team of our volunteers and dibble bar them into the bank. See how those do for this summer. Whether they take or not is going to be dependent entirely on precipitation. If they don't take, we'll know within a few weeks. They'll die or they won't. And then we'll apply for a Trees for Streams grant. Sorry, been talking way too long today. Through the Natural Resources Conservation Council, which is our oversight agency, and use what are called flashines. Those are woven bundles of live willow staked in with live willow stakes that are much more aggressive. You backfill on top of them a little bit, and then you get multiple layers of contoured willow hedge growing directly into the bank. And I have yet to see a flashine fail. So stage 1, ragtag group of volunteers goes around, clips some free clones. We shove them in the bank, hope that works. Well, we should know by midsummer whether that planting has been successful or not. If it isn't, then we have a backup plan.
And so the action item is really just like BCCD, in order to run this volunteer event on town land, just needs permission of the landowner, which is the town of Pownell, to go ahead with that.
Board's decision.
I would like to make a motion that we give
BCCD, Bennington County.
BCCD, Bennington Conservation District, permission to put in record tree plantings to keep the bank from coming down.
Along with our conservation commission.
Along with our conservation.
Yeah, we'll be lead, so we'll have the liability will be on our volunteer waiver, not the town's.
I'll second that motion.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Michael.
Parks and Rec expenditure request for signage, discussion and possible action.
We'll make this one really quick too. Hopefully, we circulated around some information. So unless you guys want me to read this paper on a statement.
I have one question.
Yeah.
I'll wait till the end.
Well, I mean, if you guys all read it, go ahead. Yeah.
I had was on the parking on County Road.
Yeah.
I don't want to end up with a problem with the landowner that's there.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, yeah. So I talked with Joel about this, and our hope is that by putting up a sign that designates a specific area for parking, kind of in that cutout in the interconnection between County Road and the power lines there, which my understanding is that the town owns. Well, there's already a little kiosk there, and that's a place where people are already trailing up their snowmobiles to use. So we just want to put up a sign basically that says this is where we want you to park, which hopefully will help mitigate people parking elsewhere on private land where we don't want people parking.
So we have a spot up there that juts in that the town owns.
Yeah. So Joel and I talked about this the other day. My understanding, yeah, it's like on the left side of County Road. If you're heading out, there's a gate across that I assume Green Mountain Power uses to access the power lines there. And what Joel told me was that sort of clearing there is town land.
I looked up on
County Road or Old County Road?
No, County Road. It's up there next to where.
It's probably where we would turn, or is it where we would turn around?
It's sort of right across from where the private Dome Trail Road goes up the hill there. Yeah, I think the gate is owned by GMP. I assume.
I'm not picking.
You don't,
Don't you
pass
guys?
Yeah, you can see it on the map, like you can see the clearing cut out there.
Did you send this? Don't we have an image of this?
I sent a couple of screenshots that show the map, in a few different sections. You may be able to see the clearing there. You may have to zoom in a little bit more.
Yes.
It's out way past where County Road has turned into a dirt road, just a little before the Stanford border. I can kind of point it out to you if you're on the map.
Oh, so you're talking on the Stanford.
where Kevin Ryan, Terry Ryan,
All right, I know what you're talking about now.
you know what we're talking about now?
Yeah, well, Ryan has his own gate there.
Correct. I just didn't want no issues with anybody
Yeah,
for
for
us
sure.
putting a sign there. And if you could lock down that we actually have that,
Okay.
that would go wonders. Just so I don't want to have somebody having an issue.
100%.
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
Now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what, I think that's Ryan's gate.
Okay.
I think as long as that is our property, that's fine.
Okay. My understanding is that it is, but I can do a little digging around on the deeds and town maps and stuff and just try and confirm that that's, part of the town property before we go any further on that. Outside of that, one thing that I should check, are there any other concerns about any of the other parking areas or sort of the general plan? I also just wanted to show you guys, this is our sign topper that we had printed last year. The goal of this was to have something really nice on top that would allow us to get cheaper signs underneath to save a little bit of money. And yeah, we're really excited about the project. This is kind of a pilot to see how it goes. And then if it's successful in sort of coming years, we can work on expanding that out to state roads and over to the west side of the valley. And yeah, we're really excited about it. The reason I'm coming to you is because this is going to cost just south of $2,000. So we just need approval from the select board to spend that much money in one shot on a project like this.
You have that in your budget.
Yes.
Parks and Rec budget.
We do.
And I would move that we allow this expenditure for the signs that you're requesting from Parks and Recs. $2,000.
Second that.
I'd like to just add the county road. We'll be making an amendment. Do you need it as long as the county road property is owned by the town?
Right.
If it's not, we can forego putting a sign there and just do all the other signs. Yeah.
Please want that in the motion.
Definitely.
And I will
Understood.
move, I will amend the motion to indicate that the only potential exception is ensuring that one particular area is owned by the county, and if so, we'll either put the signage up, if not, abstain.
Great. And yeah, we've worked with the road crew. We've talked with all of the stakeholders that run all the different trails and everything, and everybody's.
You second the amended motion. Okay.
Was it
Any
Ryan?
discussion?
Brady? So we're the
What's that?
property owner?
That would be on the.
What's his name?
My father's got my hearing aid, so.
What county you're from?
I
Yeah, but I wanna know where, Ryan, the second.
Ryan.
believe that gate he's referring to.
It's Kerry Ryan, yes.
I'll look in the morning.
Yeah, Julie, I'll send you an email or something. We can talk and figure it out. Cool. Thank you.
Motion to have a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Updates from town officials.
We have a few. I'll try to be quick. First, Nicole Prouty has unfortunately resigned from the DRB. She was an alternate on the DRB. Secondly, we have an excess weight permit.
Delson Blacktop Paving, it is a fleet permit. They paid their fee and included their insurance. What's your pleasure?
Motion to accept. Or a road foreman recommendation.
No.
He didn't write his name.
Oh,
The road foreman is not signed yet.
He did give approval, he just hasn't signed it yet.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Then I'll.
so he did recommend it. That's how I interpreted that, even though he didn't sign it.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, yeah, you're right, Jim. Have a motion, have a second. All those in favor?
Uh,
And lastly, the Dollar General has applied for a second class and a tobacco license.
Motion to grant Dollar General second class tobacco license.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Gravel crushing bid discussion and possible action. Everybody read Joel's letter.
Yes,
What's your pleasure?
I move to, yeah, where to go? I'll go to pursue the second bid, the lower
Crown
bid,
Point.
yes. Okay, it's hiding now, it's not in front of me.
Yeah, I can't find mine either.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure it's Crown Point.
Yes, it is. So I would move to let Joel move ahead, with the Crown Point bid for the gravel.
He only had two bids, Basin Brothers and Crown Point. Okay, so we didn't read it.
It's an
Got a motion or-
90-cent difference.
Is there a dollar amount on that?
There is, I should have said that, it's the Crown Point for $8.90 per yard. As opposed to the Basin Brothers, which was $10.25. So my motion would be to allow him to move on that.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Complaint form, procedure discussion and possible action.
So I changed that to municipal general concern form. But was there any other changes if anybody wanted?
I made one, I think. I just wanted to add a word. Paper. Maybe it's not on that one, it's on this one.
The policy part?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, yeah. I just wanted to, can we go to this part?
Yeah, yeah.
So on the policy, I didn't know like where it goes timeline. A formal response to the complaint will be provided within 10 days. If more time is needed, the complainant will be mailed. Can we do that and write it?
Notified in writing, yeah.
Also, yes.
Is that 10 business days?
It does say 10 business days, yeah.
So we can just email that. Yeah.
Yep.
What's your pleasure?
Or you want to do add email in there instead?
No, in writing's fine, because it
Okay.
can be email or.
Okay.
Make a motion that we approve the late form. I don't know if we update that or that's
Concern form.
the concern form,
General concern.
general concern form.
Second that motion.
With Julie's change?
But Julie's change, yes.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Block party community tag sale discussion.
So the community tag sale is kind of a faster discussion. I'll get that out of the way. Hannah had a great idea to offer a community or organize, however you want to say it, a community tag sale. And when looking at dates for the block party, I realized the Legion is doing a flea market on June 13th. So I thought it would be a great time to organize a community tag sale. We will figure out how to do the maps and do like a survey type button on our website where they can enter their address to be put on the map. And start advertising it and things like that if you give us your bus
So you're piggybacking on the 13th?
for the Legion. Yep.
Okay, that's a great idea.
I'm on this. You will be in the dunk cake.
Oh, that's
Well, this is different.
Awesome.
That's,
I knew you were gonna say that. I knew exactly who was gonna say it and when it was gonna come. First thing.
My legs will get wet.
it's so yeah, the tag sale we'll move ahead with that if you will. I don't think we need a motion.
I think it's a great idea. That's a great idea.
In the block party, I'm still formulating some ideas and there's lots of rentals and things that I've looked into. A dunk tank, I think would be a lot of fun to dunk a selectman. These are great ways to make good connections with the community. It's fun.
Sign me up.
Get people out. And maybe doing other events like a pie contest, pie baking contest, or a pie eating contest, something fun that, gets the select board also involved with the public, and just draw the community in. I would propose that we block the street. I meet with Emily pretty regularly from the library, so I'll have her help me with how they do theirs, because they block Main Street when they do theirs. But I would be asking other community for other community involvement, such as the church, if they want to participate in any way. I was gonna ask PHS maybe to set up in the Old Town Hall.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking.
We're talking Center Street.
Okay, now I understand. So when you, okay, so I think that you probably figured out, this is what I was thinking, I think initially you were proposing down near the library was, and my immediate thought was like, why would we not have it here?
No, here.
No,
This library does do
That's-
theirs down there.
That's where you get the information from.
Another of my other concerns that that makes perfect sense to me.
Okay.
Have the church open if they want.
Yes, and we'll absolutely invite other churches to participate as well, or vendors, food trucks. Really, just this is our first one, but I'm hoping that we can make it.
Well, this church used to
Really?
be a huge buy sale, so maybe
Yeah,
they
it would
got
be-
back up.
It would be something comparable to what used to happen and some new things too.
And expand on it.
I
Yeah.
strongly support that. I think it's a great idea.
So the 20th is, June 20th is the date that doesn't conflict with other things.
June 20th.
Yep. Originally was going to do the 13th, and then I found a Legion, in which I'm really thankful I realized, because I don't want to conflict with.
No, I think it is.
June 20th.
Yep, June 20th.
What time are you thinking from what to what?
I'm thinking afternoon. I
Yeah.
would love some help on timing. We want to do like 1 to 4, 1 to 5.
We could go a little way. I mean, it's gonna be so nice because it's near the state park. If we have, I don't know, if they do have fun food trucks and maybe some grilling, we could even, it could go from the afternoon to early dinner. or something.
Okay, yeah,
1 to 6.
okay.
We.
How long do I have to sit in the dunk tank for?
I'll be alone.
Okay.
Head first, so I can't do that. I'm a.
And we did apply for $500 mini grant, but the select board also has 1,700 in their expense line still, so I'll come back with a proposal once I know if we're gonna get the grant or not.
Nice.
Yeah, maybe we could talk about the time later. 1 to 6 or 2 to 6.
Yeah, two's not bad either.
Just give it a blessing to move forward.
Yeah. Bring it back and start with some monetary discussion. Town office security discussion.
So this is just a general discussion I wanted to have for ideas. We are getting ready to pave soon, and we're gonna have a little bit of ARPA money left over that can help us sort of install things that we've been talking about over time. Recently, there was an incident at Shaftesbury Town Hall, and I don't know all the details, but when I was reading about it, it said that they were able to lock him out, and I thought to myself, can we do that? We can't without going outside. Just the way the doors are set, we can't lock the door from inside.
So, okay, so I go to that door, like the initially we all come in from the parking lot area.
Yep.
You're saying that you could not walk to that door from the inside and lock it?
No, I
It
can't.
doesn't have a lock set up.
A second door with the glass, we can, but then you still have the glass in the door to see through, and you have the window there, and that door is not secure.
No, well, we definitely need to have a lock on that door. Inside, I mean, that just feels like common sense to me. You need to be able to.
So.
Hold on, let me look. Sorry.
So there's that. There's also the fact that you can see into the building through any window in the front. I don't want to be closing shades all the time, but it would be nice to have that option if an emergency were to happen.
Of course.
And I don't want to we don't have much security now, and it's always, this is Pownell, which I don't want to change that completely. I like the open door atmosphere that we have here. But I also want to acknowledge the fact that something bad could happen at any point, and we're not prepared for
I mean,
it.
I don't like there was kind of a 2-step solution. One was to have something like one of the doors on the inside, the top opens and you only let people in. That feels to me like, I do like the way that people have access. That's one of the things people love. I always want to make sure that our town staff is safe.
Yep.
So if we had blinds up, which you could quickly draw if you needed to, and a lock, for God's sake, on the door, does that feel sufficient to you?
So,
Go ahead, Julie, sorry.
so I wanna I just got a grant application for Homeland Security for election. And I was talking to Tara because we can do it for security because we are the polling place, so I can help. You know, and she said she would help me, so we could get like the cameras and, you know.
My suggestion was gonna be to, I think it's a great idea to, so that we can ensure that our staff is in here safely. Okay, that's for sure. I think come back with some, I think if there's a possibility for a grant, we can apply for the grant. We can piggyback on, but you know, I think if we come back with some ideas, you know, the lock is one thing on the door, but.
Yeah, I'm not.
But here, okay, so are we going to go around and pull blinds, or are we gonna have some sort of a electronic remote control thing where we're pulling the blinds up and down? Because if we have a staff member.
Stand in front of the window when there's an incident.
Right.
No, you know, I mean,
Those are the questions to ask.
And that's why I want you to talk about this with us, because I don't want to make the decision. Those doors are the push bar doors. I'm not sure with fire codes what we can put on them for a lock, or if we need a new door. I guess I'll have to just kind of research that out a little bit. What that'll
Or you
look.
put an additional lock on so that if you have the push to get out, but let's say there is an incident. You can go through and go click and lock it.
I think there's.
It looks like it has a key spot on it. The one out there doesn't. I feel like the one out there doesn't have that.
Well, what that spot is so you can push in and you turn the piece.
They're like a
Unlocked.
wrench or something.
Oh, it leaves it unlocked?
It leaves it unlocked.
Okay.
Released in.
Okay.
We'll have to look up, the fire code for municipality.
Can you help me with that? Cause that is a challenge for me.
Why don't you bring?
May the door
Why
locks.
don't you bring the fire marshal's office in here and
Yeah,
ask the
it's a great
question
idea.
instead of trying to look up a statute, they'll come in here and they'll tell you what can and can't do.
Do that too.
That's a good idea.
They'll tell you what you can and can't do.
Okay.
And, you know, there's no speculation, if yes, you can, no, you can't.
Or you
That's a good idea.
you can email, at DeRosa, the correct question as far as.
And then come down here and look at it, that's what I would do.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Old business,
Oh,
Did you all want me to read the VLCT feedback and quorum?
oh, yes.
yes, please.
Okay, from Sue Senning, the staff attorney at VLCT. I asked her the question regarding select board members congregating at the town hall, discussing things other than town business, such as election. Because Jamie is a justice, Julie's town clerk, they could be having a conversation, and Carl might be at the computer on maps, or Mike might come in to do health officer stuff. So it's hi Tara, it really depends on what is discussed. The law allows some gatherings of a quorum without categorizing them as meetings, so the requirements aren't triggered. But unless they fit neatly into these categories, then the gathering of a quorum discussing town business could be considered a meeting. And even if not, it could very well appear to voters inappropriate, so should be avoided. Here are the allowances that wouldn't be considered meetings. Meeting means a gathering of a quorum of members of a public body for the purposes of discussing the business of the public body or the purpose of taking action. Meeting shall not mean any communication, including in person or through email, telephone, or teleconferencing between members of a public body for the purpose of scheduling a meeting, organizing an agenda, or distributing materials to discuss at a meeting, provided that 1, no other business of the public body is discussed or conducted. 2, such communication that results in written or recorded information shall be available for inspection and copying under the Public Records Act as set forth in Chapter 5, Subchapter 3 of this title. Meeting shall not, C, meeting shall not mean occasions when a quorum of a public body attends social gatherings, conventions, conferences, training programs, press conferences, media events, or otherwise gathers, provided that the public body does not discuss specific business of the public body that, at the time of the exchange, the participating members expect to be business of the public body at a later time. D, meeting shall not mean a gathering of a quorum of a public body at a duly warned meeting of another public body, provided that the attending public body does not take action on its business. E, meeting does not mean a gathering of voters of a municipality for purposes of conducting an annual or special municipal meeting. Hope that helps, Susan.
It's very helpful, and like we all have a copy of that.
Yes.
Would you add that to the minutes, please? Make sure I get that in.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, I agree with you. I think it needs to be in our minutes.
And I think that's all I had for old business. Oh, actually, no, I could have done this in town updates and I forgot. We received the permitting for the Route 7 speed feedback
Oh, yeah.
signs, which is really, really exciting because town of Pownell hasn't made any changes to Route 7 in a very long time. It's like one of those things that everybody said you can't do, that we just did. So
Excellent. Thank you.
pretty exciting.
Thanks for that hard work.
Joel and the highway department will be installing those.
And I,
Great.
you know what, I want to thank, is it David Palmer who started that?
Yes, it was.
So I'd like to thank David Palmer.
Yeah.
A resident in Puddingstone for spearheading that and getting that ball rolled. That's. No, David, that was a big concern. So thank you for that, David. Okay. No more old business? New business for future meetings.
I have one. Can we meet with the animal control officer? I know Jamie and Bob haven't met yet to take care of that issue, but since our new addition this week, I felt to hold some things.
Sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so we don't have the stuff. And the other thing, Carl shared a bunch of tax option paperwork, and I can tell you, I have not a.
It's just there. Guys to peruse it. Take a look at it.
Yeah, and if you want me to bring that back to a future meeting for more discussion.
But I think everybody should kind of, at least, because it's gonna, if it doesn't come up here, it'll come up in another town. Just familiar yourself with it, that's all.
Discuss that. Years ago.
Yeah,
I'd like to bring it to a future meeting.
yeah.
I think it's not a bad idea.
I know.
I looked at it, but I didn't understand it.
Yeah, that's why I think we need a meeting on it.
I'm not saying today, but
No. Let's bring it back on the 25th of June.
Okay.
That gives everybody time to do some research on it, as it's a whole month. Give us some thought and. Thinking about things. Okay, no more new business?
It's not a request of this board, but I wish Nate was still here, because I would ask Nate to do this. They have because we have a large part of our forest that are ineligible for logging. But we have a forestry management plan on it. I was wondering if he could look into options on carbon
Tax credits.
well, carbon tax credit.
We don't protect though.
No, we don't pay tax, but we can get paid by another entity for us not logging the forest land that we're not gonna log anyways. And I was looking at it, probably around $8,000 a year.
I'll send that question to Nate and
Okay.
Tessa might have some good feedback.
Yeah.
All right, public comment. I will entertain a motion to enter executive or personnel to discuss the DRP numbers that we entered.
Make a motion to enter into executive for personnel to discuss the DRB members, potential members that we interviewed.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
I move that we come out of executive session for our personal discussion regarding DRB members.
Can someone grab Carl first?
can I second? I second.
All those in favor?
I forget, I
No,
can,
Julie, I
I forget I can do that, because I'm not.
You can make motions.
No, but I just, still don't like doing that. I'm not learned that yet.
Okay. So the board has made its decision on DRB. As Leonard Cody and Carl Stomar as the members to fill the expired seats. And Jim Boutin and Wendy Leffel as the alternates. Moving forward. Appointed positions, discussion and possible action.
Well, you just did that.
That's it. Well, that's what I found.
Well, we put it on there because
We do?
you had to come out.
We did that.
Yep.
I don't understand the motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. I'll make it or second it, whatever.
I'll move to adjourn this meeting.
I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor?
Uh,
I
Thank you.